One of the really fun ways of working with life force energy is to work with the chakras. And I didn't really know about this technique until I had some interesting experiences. I met with many people over the years who told me that they could see energy. And I always doubt them because the skeptic within me wants to know for sure that they're actually seeing something and not just making something up. So I developed my own little test to find out if people could really see energy. And the test is very simple. I run energy out my hand like crazy, and then I casually ask the person, well, what kind of energy do you see in my hand? And people would say, well, you have a beautiful green or blue or gold or pink light coming from you. It sounded very nice, but I never believed them. Until one day I was down in Los Angeles and I was visiting Rosalind Briere, who is very famous because she can see energy. And I said, well, Rosalind, what kind of energy do I have coming out my hand? Now, I had been running energy like crazy. And she looked at me and she said, why are you running all that energy out your hand? I said, well, I wanted to know if you could see. And she said, well, I can see quite clearly, thank you. And I got the point that she really could see energy. And she taught this very unusual workshop at that time where there's tremendous amounts of information, and I didn't know how to utilize any of this information because it was all about what colors everything are and what colors people need for different things. And finally, it came clear to me what was going on. One woman said, well, I have pain in my knees. And she said, yes, you have water on the knee, mostly the right knee, but also the left. And she said, what I do is I walk over like this. She walks over and she says, well, I squeeze the little orange balls until they turn blue. I said, well, what do you do if you don't see the little orange balls? And she said, well, you have to see them. I said, okay, well, how do I learn to see them? And she said, well, I don't know how to teach you that. And I'm thinking, why am I here? But I found, later in the day, I found something totally useful and interesting. Rosalind said, whenever you put your attention in any of the chakras of your body, the color coming out your hand becomes the color of that chakra. Ah, okay, that I can use. So I had learned a meditation from a teacher named Lazarus years ago, and I'd been using it daily at that time, where I'd spin my chakras one by one, or get them all going at once. And so I said, Rosalind, what color is this? She goes, yellow. I said, what color is this? Blue. What color is this? Green. What color is this? Indigo. Wow. And as fast as I could ask her the questions, she'd tell me the answer just like that. And I saw, wow, this is the way we can change the color vibration of a session that we're doing. Now, when you're doing a full body sweep, you're feeling the sensations of the life force energy moving up your whole body to the top of your head, you are activating all the different chakras within your system, all the major 7 chakras. And you're doing a full sweep and you're activating all those colors. So you're automatically putting out all the chakra colors. But we can increase the intensity of the sessions and the power of the work by learning to put our attention in the chakras and really rev them up directly and more powerfully. So with that in mind, we'll practice this exercise for being able to use the chakra energy for healing. So, put all your attention as you're sitting here in the base of your spine. Put all your attention at the very end of the tailbone area, the coccygeal. Feel as much sensation as you can in that area. You can breathe into it. Feel a ball of light there. Get that ball of light spinning any way it wants to spin. Forward, back, right, left. Round and round, any way it wants to go. Feel as much sensation as you can in that first chakra area. These chakras are energy centers that the Indian yogis described years ago. The first chakra has been associated with safety and survival and the color red. You don't have to think red. When you have your attention there and you're spinning the energy comes out as red. This whole process is also self-healing. Just doing it is self-healing. So feel as much sensation as you can in that first chakra area. Breathe into it. Now put all your attention into the second chakra. It's in the middle of the body across from the genitals, and feel as much sensation as you can there. The second chakra is associated with pleasure and sensuality, and procreation, of course. And it's also associated with the color orange, a nice, deep, rich orange color. Get that ball of light spinning any way it wants to go. Feel as much intensity as you can as it spins. And now bring your attention to the tummy area. Right above and below the belly button. Nice, big tummy area. Feel the ball of light inside yourself, not on the surface, but inside yourself. Beautiful, intense, bright yellow color. This is the third chakra. The third chakra is associated with emotional expression and, unfortunately, also control issues. So feel that bright, buttery yellow ball. You don't have to see it as yellow. Just feel the ball. It is yellow. Bring as much sensation to that third chakra area as you can. Okay, now bring your attention to the fourth chakra, the heart. Bring your awareness in there. Feel a ball of energy. Get it spinning any way it wants to go. The heart is associated with an emerald green color. Brilliant, bright emerald green. Get it spinning. Feel as much sensation as you can. Now bring your attention to the throat. Bring that ball of energy in there, get it spinning. The fifth chakra, the throat area, is associated with a deep, rich, sapphire blue color. And issues, of course, of communication, while the heart is issues of the heart. And then you can bring your attention to what's often referred to as the third eye area, just above the brow line, middle of the forehead, maybe a half an inch to an inch above the brow line. It's the sixth chakra. Feel that ball of energy spinning in there. The sixth chakra is associated with intuition and the color indigo. Intuition, insight, wisdom, those sorts of issues. And then you can bring your attention to the crown of the head, which is the seventh chakra. Feel the ball of light on the top of your head, spinning on the top of your head. Feel as much sensation as you can. This is associated with spirituality and the color violet. And these are the seven chakras of the body. But there are another set of chakras that I learned about that we found incredibly helpful for healing. Now, the meanings of these chakras go beyond our language, so they don't make a lot of sense, and they also go beyond the color spectrum of what we can see, but they have tremendous power, both in terms of what you're going to learn today, and should you decide to take the supercharging class, they're very helpful and necessary as part of what we learn to use in the supercharging class too. But let's work with the eighth chakra now. Put your attention about 8-10 inches under your feet, a ball of energy below your feet as being the eighth chakra. Feel it as strongly as you can below your feet. If you can, you might even feel that it's having impact inside your body as well as you're doing it. Then feel a ball of energy maybe 8 or 10 inches above the top of your head. And get it spinning. Feel as much sensation as you can in that ball of energy above your head. That is the ninth chakra. And above 9 is 10. And above 10 is 11, and above 11 is 12. So there's 3 more, one above the next, above the top of your head. And one by one, you get each of those other 3 spinning. Bring as much awareness into those upper chakras as you can. 10, 11, and 12. One by one. Okay, and open your eyes. Now, when you're running energy in a session, aside from all the other things I have you doing, keeping busy, you can get your chakras spinning one by one, and in time, you can actually learn to do them all simultaneously. You get so good at it, you just think about it, all your chakras are going, but it's not a conceptual thing. It's a tactile sensation thing that you feel inside your body. You are really doing it, because when you have moved your enough awareness to create sensation inside your body, you're doing something very significant at that point. It isn't just, well, imagine a blue flower floating through the room. This is something that has tangibility and power behind it. You feel the energy in your hands when you think about the energy, and you feel it. It isn't just conceptualization, it's sensation. Now, I remember years ago, there was one fellow who took the workshop with his girlfriend, and he was running energy into his girlfriend's heart. She had a weak heart. And he was one by one going through each of the chakras, revving them up as he's running energy. So you rev up the chakra and you feel that energy moving through your hands as you do it. And when he'd get to the 6th chakra here, she would have this remarkable experience, and she said, "Oh my God, John, I feel like I'm flying. I feel like I'm soaring through space." He said, "Well, that's pretty interesting." And then he went through all the other chakras, and he got back to the first again. He went through them all a second time. And as soon as he got to the 6th chakra, she said, "John, I'm doing it again. I'm flying. I'm soaring through space." And he goes, "Oh, that's really..." He did it 3 times. And each time he gets to the 6th chakra, she had that experience. Now, I have this idea that if we could see energy as clearly as a few people do, we would know exactly which colors people need in which places. But I have a much simpler idea, being of simple mind myself, which is that if you just give all the different colors to a person, it's like taking a multivitamin in the morning. You don't have to say, well, do I need more B1 or B6, or should I take more C, or more of this, more of that? You just take all the vitamin, minerals, and antioxidants every day, and let your body decide what it wants to do, what it needs to do, what it can do with that. And it works great. So when you're running energy in a session, give them all the different color vibrations and the ones that are beyond color. In fact, revving up those upper chakras. Did anybody feel some wonderful stuff doing that? I see a lot of heads nodding, yes. It puts you into some amazing states of openness and wonder to be able to do that. So it's a great way to go.
Well, I had Dave working on my neck, and eventually the pain made its way right into this angle of my jaw. Now, the history to the story is that when I was a little kid, about 5 years old, I fell on the top of my head on a cement slab, and I got a concussion. And ever since then, the 2 pupils in my eyes have been different sizes. I mean, my entire life, different sizes. For 20 minutes, he worked on this spot. I went home that night, I looked in the mirror, my pupils are the same size, and they've been the same size for 3 days. I mean, it just makes me want to cry. I mean, who knows what that's about, but something changed, something happened, and now, I mean, they don't feel any different, but the fact that they look different, I know there's something really profound that really happened, so it was just great.
It just always amazes me to see the variety and the diversity. People say to me, well, will it help this condition? And we say, don't know, let's try. But when we keep seeing things happen that we've never even heard of before or even experimented with, it's just always astounding to see.
Yeah, it was amazing. It's so totally unexpected.
And now that we're back from break, you had something to share too.
Yeah, something very short. I had a session this morning, and my back is getting better and better, and I almost don't feel it anymore. So
Isn't that
I
incredible?
came this morning with a sharp pain.
And so since the last time you shared with us, it's
getting better and better, and it's almost gone.
Isn't that amazing?
Entirely.
Okay, great. Thank you. And pass it back.
During the chakra spinning exercise, when we got below the feet, I felt an incredible rush of energy, and then we got above the head, and there was just a cascade, and everything opened in my body, and I felt what it would be like to have no pain and just release all the pain that I've been storing for so long, and the emotions of just like no more guilt and frustration and regret about my life. And yeah, that's it.
I decided to do some distant healing on my daughter, and I felt like what it would be like to visualize how normal it will be for her to feel total healing and total release. And I kept on telling myself, so visualize how it would feel like, you know, just like you said, 5 years ago, instead of it happening only now. And I kept on seeing that during the session, you know, during the meditation. And after
So
that, I
what
felt
I'm
like-
hearing is you held the space for her to be well, as if that was normal life. You know, 5 years she's been well and everything's fine. And then we did that during the distant healing. And then here it is time you're doing the chakras, and then you have this huge emotional catharsis. And all the emotion comes through and out. And a lot of times that pain that's been getting released somewhat from the sessions and more from the distant healing, and then the emotions that were tied into it come out in a big way. And now you're probably ready to let the rest of the healing happen into the forearms, where that chronic tendonitis that kept you from playing the violin is now freed up so that you can go back and do that which you love so much. Great. Yeah. Okay, so let's move on. And I'd like you folks watching the video from time to time to continue to share all the stories and the experiences that you're having, because it really inspires each other to hear these stories and to get a sense of the magnitude and the variety of the healing that's actually happening in the sessions that you're giving each other. Well, the next topic is we're going to work with toning. And toning is a wonderful way of amplifying the energy of a session. A friend of mine had been doing toning for 20 years, and she put it to a group once. She was helping me teach a quantum touch class, and she said, it was so lovely, she said, I've been doing toning for over 20 years, and she said, I have to admit, the first time I tried toning, she said, I felt incredibly stupid. But after 20 years, it's only fair to let you know, I feel just as dumb as the day I started making these sounds out loud. So what we find here is that I'm going to show you a way of toning without humiliating yourself. And so we'll do that now. Any tone will work. Ah, A, E, O, U, any vowel sound. What you'll want to do is find the tones that have the most resonance in your hand and that have the most impact where you're working, so you have the most vibratory connection with what you're working on. And in doing so, you can just experiment between the different sounds. But first I'll show you a way to be able to tone and not disturb people at libraries, or not to embarrass yourself. So cup your hands and start running energy into your hands. And now, mentally, but not out loud, sing a tone and feel the vibration in your hands. And then try singing like up a scale, maybe half notes or full notes, just making the sound higher and higher and higher, or lower and lower, and feel the difference in vibration in your hands as you tone different sounds. Isn't that something? Who would have known? Just thinking different sounds causes a shift in the vibration in your hands. Well, here's something else you can do. Try singing this tone really loud in your head. So loud would have been kind of embarrassing. How's that feel? You feel the strengthening of it? Yeah, isn't that something? Now, try singing the tone in your head and do it in harmony. You can't sing in harmony. Sure you can. Just imagine it. Hear the different tones and feel it vibrationally. Do it loud. In fact, why not be a chorus? A whole group of people, large group of people, and feel the vibration of the tone of a large group. So it gets stronger and stronger. Now, the more you put yourself out, the more you're really holding the space, the more you're giving of yourself, the more effective it is. The more you completely get out of the way and enjoy the process of giving and holding the resonant vibration, the more powerful it is. And people will say, well, how can you vortex the energy and spin your chakras and tone and hold the space inside the other person and do harmony? Oh my God. What you can do is you realize that this is what giving your all is. You just get out of the way and you enter a sense of celebration and you hold the space and you're doing the breathing and you're just experiencing. And if you're experiencing your joy and your gratitude, you're going to do so much because you get out of the way, and the more occupied you are in just doing this and letting it go, the more effective it can be. It's about doing what you can do and letting the energy do what it can do. So you do everything you can to raise the space and then let it go. Don't hold tightness, because as you let go of the tightness in your shoulders and your arms and your elbows and your neck, and just get into the space of feeling the total celebration of it, it gets better and better. Now, and this way you can tone right while you're in the library. And you won't disturb anybody except the highly psychic people, of course, will say, shh, would you do that more quietly, please? That hasn't happened to me yet. Okay. There's another way of toning, which is out loud. Now, when I first started combining toning with quantum touch, I loved the impact and the power of the toning, but I was very disappointed and disturbed that everybody who was toning had stopped breathing. Because you take a breath, oh, you go on and on and on and on and just keep going. A good singer can hold a breath for 30 seconds or a minute or even more. So that means we're talking about a 1:30 breath or something, or a one minute breath, which is definitely not keeping the breathing going. So I came up with a technique called the breathy tone technique. It's sort of the Marilyn Monroe version of toning. It's where you have, it's sort of like, happy birthday. So what you're doing is you're completing a complete breath, say to 4 or 6 counts. So instead of going, oh, you can just go on all the time. You're going, oh, and you're very quickly running out of air. Now, a woman took this workshop who's a professional opera singer. And she's actually quite famous. And she told me that, Richard, she said, that breathy tone technique, that is something that professional singers do as something that helps heal their voice. They do it as an exercise to help heal their voice. I had no idea. I just did it so we could get a tone out, be able to continue toning, and keep the breathing going. But it turns out that it was actually a very beneficial thing for people to do as well. So, if you feel inclined to tone out loud, do not allow your breathing to linger more than about 6 counts on the exhalation. So use a breathy tone and try playing with different frequencies of vibration, whether you're doing it in your head or out loud. You can also play with the different vowel sounds. So you may go ah or a or e, o, u, and you may go between them too. E, a, or whatever you like. Make it up, have fun. There's no exact way, although there'll be a lot of books that tell you this has to be done this way and it has to be that exact note. I find it's better to just futz with it and play with it. And when you find the vibrations that have the greatest resonance, it's not theoretical at that point. It's nobody's theory that says this means C and this means D and this means E. Well, those are arbitrary tones that kind of got discovered. So just play with it and find out which tones are really the ones that have the resonance, rather than some theoretical system. But read them too if you want to play with them and experiment with different ways of doing it as well. Well, I want you to also be aware of the fact that there is a supercharging class. I mentioned it a couple times briefly, but I want to tell you about the history of it, how it came about. And for those people watching the videotape, after you've completed this course, if there are 12 people in some place who want to do the supercharging class, we'll have Alan or one of the new supercharging teachers, when they're ready, come out and teach that class. So the supercharging class came about. First when I met Mary, as I told you before, and she was working as the office administrator, and I tested her and saw that she could actually see energy. And I was running energy into her knee and I started vortexing it, like I said, and she could suddenly see, oh my God, I've never seen energy spin like this before. When she came to one of my lectures and she saw me demonstrating the work, she said all my chakras got like this wide when I was running the energy, which is what happens to everybody when they're running energy. And then when she came to the workshop, like you're in now, she was watching and she saw more healing going on than she'd ever seen. Now, she'd seen energy clearly since she was 3 years old. And when she saw what people were able to do, it was unbelievable to her, because she can see inside the cells and inside the subatomic and everything, and she was watching huge changes taking place inside people. And it re-excited her to be able to do healing work in her life, because she had done as much as she could do just using her mind, but by using the breathing and the body focusing exercises, raising the life force that much stronger, it re-enthused her toward going back into hands-on healing work again. Well, about 3 weeks after the class was over, I got a call from her one day and she said, Richard, she said, I figured out how we can at least double the power of a quantum touch session and have the sessions last at least twice as long. And she did. She came up with this whole system, but I realized that she didn't want to be teaching. She didn't enjoy teaching. I got her to teach me and Alan and a few other people, and that was about as much as she had the patience to do, or the desire to do, I should say. And she taught this workshop, and Alan turned out to be the ideal teacher. And I took all the reviews from, I think, the first 7 workshops that he taught and put them all up on the web, and you can see what everybody had to say. And most people just say it's beyond words, because not only are there these new and extraordinary techniques that amp the power up way beyond what we've ever seen before, but Alan has found a way of taking his wisdom and working with people one by one, because he can see the energy just as clearly as she does. And in fact, the way I tested him was I was running energy into somebody one day, and he said, Richard, I think you should be putting green in there. And I thought, all right, whatever. So I started putting green in. I started vortexing my 4th chakra area, spinning it there and putting the energy out my hands. He said, oh, that's beautiful. That's a beautiful green. And then I tested him. And about 30, 40 seconds later, I started putting yellow in. And he said, he's just looking concerned. He said, Richard, he says, that's looking very yellow. And he said, put green back in. I said, oh, okay. So I started putting green back in. And then he had this look of relief on his face. He said, oh, that's so much better. So I found out he could see. Well, it turned out he also has a tremendous ability to work with people and help guide them individually to be able to run energy the way they need to. Some people are running the energy outside themselves. Some people aren't connecting the energy. Some people are, like one person I remember, wasn't running it up through their knee and it was kind of skipping. It wasn't going through properly and it was just kind of getting dissipated. Some people are they're making such a wide range. Some people are holding certain kind of tensions even inside their body. He guides people one by one very delicately and very lovingly when there's no fear or embarrassment that anybody feels. It's just very easy. And he gets people to the point where they can just have tremendous, greater ability to move the energy and run the energy. And so the classes are limited to 12 people because it takes that long to teach the people the techniques and to make sure that they're all doing it right, and and to give each person that one-to-one attention to find the way that they need to do it. So when Alan guides somebody, he says, okay, now bring it all the way into the center of yourself. And the person says, okay, I got it. He says, well, that's not quite the center. Go even deeper. And he goes, oh yeah, that's it. He said, well, that's much better, but you still need to go further. And the person suddenly feels this huge rush of energy. And Alan says, ah, that's it. Now do you feel the difference? And the person, oh yeah. And what Alan does is just confirm what you already know to be true. And he always works that way. Anyway, we are seeing some phenomena in the supercharging class that is extraordinary. There's one fellow down in Los Angeles who, doing one of the techniques, I call the longevity technique, but Mary called it reversing the aging process technique. And his mustache started growing dark. Actually, part of it happened right during a workshop. And everybody stopped. They go, oh my God, because his mustache was getting dark. All the hair on his body turned dark. He got so much energy, he started going to the gym and working out. He said his libido's gone through the ceiling. There's a woman Alan told me about who, he said, the pattern baldness that was beginning to happen on her head all filled in again. Another woman who doesn't have to color her hair anymore, and her hair has started coming back its natural color. But there's other techniques about releasing old emotional wounds. There's techniques of gathering information. A lot of people find that that course helps them open up their intuitive processes, and Alan talks about that to some extent. There's one on having the body arrive at its desired body weight. So we're taking it in lots of other directions. But the most important thing that I can see is that it doubles people's power, or triples or quadruples their power at running energy, and it lets the sessions last much, much longer. So these are some really exciting aspects of that class. And so a couple of you here have taken the class, and should we hear? Okay, like to say something?
What I found was that the way he addresses things, he makes everybody very comfortable. Oftentimes, as you say, people are shy. It doesn't matter. You just know that he's on your side, and he's very supportive, and as you do, gives a wealth of information. So you feel very, very comfortable with it. And it's fun, as you said.
Yeah, as good as the reviews have been on my class, Alan's class gets even better reviews. I'd like you to start doing the chakra exercise where you're running energy with the chakras and the toning on each other for half an hour. And what I want you to do is to get into groups of 2 or 3. We have a half an hour for this exercise, so you'll either be doing 10 or 15-minute sessions so that it works out to be a half an hour. Now remember, when you're doing the chakra exercise, you want to spin each chakra and run the energy through yourself and let the other person feel what it's like to have that color vibration come through you. So go ahead and do that now. For those of you watching the videotape, it's time to bring out the wine, and for the kids who happen to be there, some soft drinks. Because some people have the ability to take the carbonation out of soda, and everybody else is really good at changing the taste of wine. So if you all get your wine glasses going and start running energy into it, I'll show you a little something. When you want to run energy into a fluid, you want to make sure your hands are directly over where the fluid is. You don't want your fingers above above the fluid. You want your fingers directly over where that fluid is in the glass. So whether it's a carbonated drink or a wine drink, you can do that. And while you're running the energy in, I'll tell you how I came across this work. So I was visiting a friend who had some stale wine. I tried running energy into the wine, and the wine tasted quite palatable. And we tasted it against the uncharged, and it was very significant. So I went to a winery, and I told the woman who worked at the winery, I said, you know, I think I can make your wine taste better. And she said, well, this is probably the stupidest thing I have ever heard in my life. Oh, by the way, keep breathing while you're running energy into the wine. Just because I'm telling you a story, you can keep breathing. And I said, well, I'd really appreciate it if you do it. She says, well, I don't have time for this nonsense. And I said, well, you know, would you please humor me and help me get over my delusions that I have this ability? And she said, oh, okay. So she pours 2 little glasses of wine, and I run energy into one of them. And she tastes them after a couple of minutes, and she says, do you realize what you've done? I said, tell me. She says, you've demolished the complexity of this wine, and you've nearly eliminated the aftertaste. I said, is that good? She said, no, it's really, really bad. And I said, you know, if you'd like, I can run energy into all the bottles at once. And she said, no, don't do that. She's slamming her hands on the table. Now, I haven't yet got into the protection business, but I don't intend to. But it was a thought. Anyway, so you've been running energy into the wine, and hopefully at home, also running energy into the wine. And feel what it feels like on your fingers as you're running that energy right into the fluid. In a moment, I'm going to have you taste what you've done and see if you notice the difference compared to the uncharged wine. Okay, so why don't you take a little sip of the one you charged and notice the taste and notice the aftertaste. And what words would you use to describe? Let's hear it from this side here. What words would you use to describe the taste of the wine?
Mine's kind of tart.
Tart, what?
Tangy.
Tangy,
Sour.
sour. Okay, try the uncharged one now.
That's
Really
really bad.
bad. Look at these sour faces. Look at that face.
Really bad.
Yes. Yeah, it's night and day. Yeah, you didn't like the first one very much, but the second one you really didn't like. Yeah. So that's what happens. You're changing the taste of wine, and we've seen a lot of kids who can actually get the fizz out of a soft drink. Remember this one boy, Benny, went to school, and he almost got in trouble because he's walking around. He said to some girl, can I hold your root beer can? She said, sure. So he holds the root beer can, he runs energy, and he hands it back. He says, you've taken the fizz out of my soft drink, and it's not sweet anymore. And he went from person to person doing that. When he did it to his older brother's Gatorade bottle that had already been opened and sitting in the car, his brother didn't know what had happened to it, and he spit it out the window. And he got into a big fight with his brother, thought he had tainted the bottle somehow. But the reason I show you this little wine trick is not to teach you a way to be able to serve stale wine to your guests and get away with it. What I'm really wanting to show you is that we're changing the very physics and chemistry of matter. We are changing physics and chemistry of matter. This is called alchemy, folks. This stuff is considered impossible. And yet, again, we're doing something that's not considered possible. I remember when I was doing some healing sessions at University of California, Santa Cruz on the basketball team, and this one man said he'd had a really bad head cold. I told him I could work on it. He just watched me work on some wine some of the women athletes had, I mean not wine, but water the women athletes were drinking. Yeah, the wine. And the water they'd been drinking, and it had tasted so bad out of the drinking fountain. They're putting in their little plastic sports bottles, and I ran energy into it, and they said, it's not good. And they tasted the uncharged one and go, blah, like that. And 3 of them tried it, and they called their friends over and said, here, taste these 2. Tell me what you noticed about the taste. And they did it back and forth, and everybody went, not good. Blah. We're changing the taste. I said to this guy, I said, I could run energy and help your head cold. And he said, what can you do? And I said, well, I can make all the water in your head taste better. Well, if you're doing that much to wine, and that was only a couple minutes of running energy into the wine, just think what would happen if you spent an hour running energy into somebody's body. How much the fluids, and we're mostly fluid, we're mostly water, how much everything is changing inside themselves. If you're changing the taste of wine that significantly, can you imagine the depth of changes that are taking place when you spend 20 minutes or half an hour or an hour working on a person? There are changes going on that are beyond anything that we could ever imagine. So there's one other technique I'd like to show you in this section I like to call fun stuff, and it's called chakra charging for 2. And it's where 2 people will run energy into each other at the same time. And in this technique, we have seen a wide range of experiences that people have. The most common experience is people go into that lovely state between sleep and wakefulness where you just feel all empty and peaceful and just completely emptied out, totally at rest. That's the most common. But we've had some classes where hysterical laughter broke out and just waves and waves of laughter have happened. We've had some people who have gone into ecstatic states doing this technique. We've had a few people who have had full body orgasm, just holding another person's feet and having their feet held. We've had, I remember one woman went into a state of consciousness where she felt she had merged to become one with the entire universe. And it was a life-changing experience to just open up that broadly and experience her connection to her divinity that strongly. And whatever it is that you experience, it's just lots of fun and it's a delight to do. This is the chakra charging for 2 technique, and as you can see, 2 people laying down, one person with legs draped over the other person's legs slightly, holding each other's feet. I can't tell you how many variations of this I tested out, explored, and played with before I finally came up with the most powerful and effective method where 2 people could run energy into each other. We tried shoulders and arms and heads and every kind of way you can think of. This was the elegant one that worked by far the best. Now, when people are laying down this way, you want to hold the bottom of the person's feet with soft wrists. You don't want to be gripping your hands, you want soft hands. And when you're laying down, you can do more of the fire breathing, and there's no worry about fainting or falling anywhere. So why don't you do some deep breathing? Very good. Boy, I feel like I can feel it from here. You getting that too? Wow. I just felt this wave of peacefulness come over me. And so what happens is, as you're running energy into another person's feet, it's going all the way through their whole body. And you're lifting them to a higher vibratory level. And then they're doing the same thing, and they're lifting you up higher. And the higher you get, you put them in. So you're creating this nice figure 8 of getting higher and higher and higher. And the more you give to the other person, the more completely you're breathing deeply and you're really giving to that process. And the more you're doing it, the higher they get, and the more they're doing it, the higher you get, and you keep going higher and higher and higher. There was a couple who came to a class I taught in Tucson, and she told me the story that the 2 of them, she and her boyfriend, decided to do the chakra charging technique for 2 before they went out to dinner and then went to go dancing. It was on a Friday night, and they were both exhausted from a week of work. They thought, well, we'll just spend 20 minutes and rejuvenate. and do this technique with each other. And so they did the technique and felt great. And when they opened their eyes, 7 hours had passed. They had just held it and they just went into this really deep space. Neither of them woke up for 7 hours. They were just running energy for the 7 hours. And by the way, you can run energy while you're asleep. I've done it many times. When I went to sit in on one of Alan's supercharging classes, I said, by the way, how many of you have ever had the experience that you wake up in the middle of the night and you find out you're running energy like crazy while you're asleep? And most everybody had had that experience. Because once your body gets accustomed to running energy, and you get the feeling of it, and you got the breathing down and everything, your body likes it so much, it'll actually do it when you're sleeping. I woke up one morning, I had one hand behind my head, one hand on my tummy, and I was doing full breathing technique, and I was giving myself a session all night long while I was sleeping. But when you're doing this with each other, I didn't finish the story. When they woke up early in the morning, very early in the morning, and had something to eat because they were pretty hungry at that point, they said they felt more balanced than they could ever remember in their life. They said they felt balanced for an entire month after they'd spent 7 hours holding each other's feet. Might be a good thing for snorers too, because you're further away from their head. But anyway, it's a lovely thing to do. Now, while you're doing this one, what you can also do is put all your attention in your own first chakra and get it revved up and spinning. And then if you want to do that together, you can just squeeze once, meaning first chakra, and then when you're ready, go to the second chakra and so forth. And 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, below to the feet, 9, 10, 11, 12. And if you're still awake and conscious at that point, you could run through a second time if you wanted to, or just drift. It feels so good to just drift. So this is the chakra charging for 2 technique. It's really simple, it's really easy, it's tremendously fun. And in some settings, if you have enough people, like 10 or 12 people in a room, and a carpeted floor, you could do what's called a sun star. And the sun star is where you get people basically, I'll show you the picture of the sun star. It's easier to show you than to describe it. And as you do this technique, you could also be combining it with any of the other techniques you learned in the workshop. You can be combining it with vortexing or amplified resonance technique, toning, anything, and it's all encouraged. So what I'd like to suggest is that you watching this videotape take 20 minutes and do chakra charging for 2 with somebody else and experience how this feels. That was about 5 minutes of chakra charging for 2. How did that feel?
It felt really relaxing and very empowering. And I feel like I can do anything now. Very and very, in a very quiet way.
Yeah, it's very peaceful.
Very peaceful. It was interesting because the way I could picture it was like going from my 12th chakra all the way zooming to the other, for your 12th chakra, and then coming back to me like swinging. It was. I didn't have a sense really of separation, where my body was starting and ending.
Yeah. Isn't that fantastic?
Yeah, it's a wonderful experience. I recommend anybody.
At the beginning, I was getting a really warm spot right here, and it felt just like this big ball was sitting right on the top of my forehead. But I had some interesting experiences, like all throughout my body, I'd feel these pain sensations. Like my hip would hurt, and I was like, okay, well that kind of hurts, and then it would shift over here, and then it would go over there. It kind of bounced around, and then it disappeared, and I decided, I'm just going to stay right here.
Good. Yeah, it's all healing and moving up through and just changing throughout your body. That's great.
That's great.
Thank you.
I didn't feel any pain.
No pain now, huh? Hey,
When I was down.
that's great. Fantastic.
Yeah, I feel like she's my new best friend.
Yeah.
We just met.
It's funny you mention that because you talk about the lack of separation and the feeling of connectedness, and she's my new best friend. We had one class where two people who just came out of the front row to practice with each other. They didn't know each other at all. And when they got up, they both told the same story and said, this was so weird because we both had the feeling we were falling in love. We don't even know this other person. Yeah, that's what you were feeling too.
Yeah,
Yeah.
was weird.
Yeah, it's just, I feel like, I just love this person because the loving feeling is what you naturally feel when you feel that relaxed and open and at peace. Because that's the natural human feeling when you're feeling that good. And this just puts people into that state of feeling that good.
That's great.
Isn't that something? So, I'd like to encourage you to make up your own quantum touch techniques. Now, I know there's a lot of systems that say you always have to do it this way, and this is the only way, and if you do it bad, If you think about it, what is quantum touch? It's a combination of Vipassana yoga and a pranayama meditation, but the systems were so complete within themselves and with such love and loyalty to the teachers who said, don't ever change anything. If you do it differently, your head will explode. Something bad will happen to you. This is a complete system. Don't change the system. And what I want to say to you is, if they just got a little creative and say, well, let's combine a little this and a little that and try it out and put my hands on somebody and do the breathing and the body awareness exercises, they'd have had quantum touch eons ago. And by the way, I've met people, one person who was Cherokee, one person Navajo, a woman from Hawaii, who each told me that it was part of their old tradition to be doing something very much like quantum touch. And I wouldn't doubt if there are hundreds of traditions around the world where people have come across such a basic thing that we can all do. Well, there is no exact way to do it. The crucial things I've talked about before are you got to do the breath. The breath is crucial because it keeps your life force raised and you'll never entrain to the other person. You got to do some of the body focusing to move the energy through that. But from there, you have tremendous freedom because any visualization that increases the sensation, any emotional thing you can bring in, any conceptualization that makes you feel more strength and power and you feel connected, if you call Jesus or you call Muhammad or you call anybody who totally touches your heart, or a cat, or anything that opens you up deeply into your love is going to improve the session. I remember one friend, she has this cat that she totally adores, and whenever she thinks about the cat, I think I mentioned this before, her heart just bubbles over in love. Well, when she was doing a demonstration before a whole room of very hostile and skeptical physicians and nurses, she was just bringing her cat in, running the energy, and she got a standing ovation by all the people who were there because the results were so stunning that you could see it. So make up your own techniques. I know a lot of teachers don't tell you to do that, but find out what works for you. Find your own breathing patterns that are more effective for you. Combine this work with what you know. You know acupuncture, that's great. So use acupuncture points. We've got a couple people who told me they're going to be writing a book called Acupoints for Quantum Touch. I really want to see these books out there. You can combine it with shiatsu points. You can combine it with reflexology points. There was a woman who was a reflexology teacher, and she had this big callus on the side of her foot. So I'm massaging her callus, but I'm running energy while I'm doing it. Now, it's harder to run energy when you're massaging and using some pressure. I ran energy into that callus for about 10-15 minutes. She was shocked because the callus had gone down about 2/3 in size. Now, she used to pumice this thing off on a regular basis. And he was just running energy into it and rubbing it, and it was melting away. I've seen, speaking of that, I've seen plantar fasciitis, where it's like a calloused area on the foot, and the person feels like they're walking on needles. And just, a 40-minute, hour-long session, and all that callous area just melted away. We don't know the limits of the work, and that's so exciting. But also, we don't know the limits of what you're going to create and invent. The supercharging class was a new creation, a new invention. And we're finding out some people, if they get busy being inventive and creative, come up with the most wonderful ways of writing energy. And some of them are going to be described on that audio tape that you folks who are taking the video course will soon be receiving. Now, the final thing I'd like to talk about in this workshop is my vision for the future. I've been thinking about this a great deal, and the more time I spend with quantum touch, the more touched I am in a quantum way. I haven't ever said that before, but the more astounded I am at the possibilities and the implications of this work. We change the taste of wine. We're changing the very physics and chemistry of matter. When this gets properly researched, and we're starting our nonprofit where we can really get the research going, and when we get the research done, we're going to change physics and chemistry forever. When people realize that their love and life force energy affects the very structure of matter, physics and chemistry can never be looked at the same. The Heisenberg uncertainty principle will take a more personal understanding that we're of course affecting everything we're giving our attention to. And then we're also going to be affecting biology. The point of biology was to study life. Well, what is life? Well, that's the one question the biologists don't like to get to, which is what's that differentiating point between something that's alive and something not alive? Because at the moment of death, there's no chemical difference between a living thing and a dead thing, because look, what chemical thing changed? It's still the same thing. What changed is the life force energy, which shifted. Life force is the core of biology, which has been ignored and overlooked. This thing that's been around for thousands of years has been skipped over. The implications of medicine are too big to even begin to go into detail with, but it's going to affect every aspect of medicine someday, because we can start with the least invasive ways of caring for people. And then, if necessary, move to slightly more invasive ones. But we can do so much. Psychology, we're seeing, like I said before, helping people with panic attacks, helping people release core emotional issues, helping people release the pain that comes up naturally, that organically comes through the system. Botany, of course this work affects plants. A lot of people have had fun running energy into cut flowers, and the cut flowers last longer. There was one woman who told me that her boss would give all the women in her office a rose on Monday morning of every week, and the other women in the office were very envious because her roses always lasted a lot longer than theirs, just faded really fast, because she ran energy into the water and into the rose itself. I've heard that story quite a number of times. We're affecting everything that's living. And so affecting physics, chemistry, biology, medicine, psychology, and botany, we're touching all the major sciences. Then a man told me, he said, well, do you realize, Richard, that this is going to affect world economy? He was a world economist. And I said, what are you talking about? He said, well, when this is taught to third world countries or even in first world countries, people will be healthier, they'll work more days, they'll make more money, and then they go shopping. It helps the economy. So it's something that would help economically. And then philosophically, it also touches people philosophically, because the bottom line of everything that we're doing, the subtext, if you do this work long enough, you will discover my love has impact and my love has value. And everybody's love is valuable and everybody's love has impact. And no matter what hostile, wrong group they may belong to, no matter what judgments anybody may have about this other group of people here that for whatever reason you don't like, when you realize that energetically their love has value and their love has impact. I imagine a world where life force energy has been studied, where life force energy has been accepted. It's changed physics, chemistry, biology, medicine, psychology, botany, economics, philosophy forever. We live in a different world where it becomes part of every child's education. And when a child falls down on the playground, instead of the few bully kids who stand around laughing meanly, what you have is all the others rushing up, saying, can I help, putting your hands on and taking the pain away really fast. Incidentally, there's a couple kids I know of who are on basketball and baseball teams. They're just like 9, 11 years old. And when any kid on the team gets an injury, they go to work. And instead of being out for 4 or 5 days like the coach thought, they're playing the very next day on the team. The implications of it are tremendous. So you got the children. When a child's having ADD or ADHD, aside from taking the soft drink machines off campus, which is criminal negligence, the teacher could say, instead of giving drugs or punishment, well, same difference, right? Instead of treating them in this way, the teacher could say, well, who'd like to give Sally or Billy some energy? I would. And the kids run up and they put their hands on Run Energy and bring them right back to center again, because it's that easy to do. We see people working in hospitals already. There was one woman doing sessions post-surgically in a hospital, and the doctor said, you have to stop doing this. And she said, why? He said, well, we can no longer anticipate and predict how much pain medication to give the patients. But when this is accepted, we can have people treated in hospitals. We can have every kind of clinic where instead of the emotional support groups where you got the 12-step programs where everybody's talking about the problems all the time, let's run energy. You got the chronic support pain groups. Well, instead of talking about it, let's fix it. Come on, let's run energy. And people can do this for each other. It can be in every corporation, every institution of every kind, that people know this most basic human skill, that they can care for each other. I've had people tell me, heard 5 in a row, where people told me about pain-free childbirth, where women giving birth, and someone else is running energy, and the baby comes out pain-free. With the childbirth, one of the reasons there are so many C-sections, according to some obstetricians I talked to, is that when the hips are misaligned, there's just not enough room for baby's head through the birth canal. Well, guess what? You run the energy and you open up the hips. Well, how do you do that? You don't have to figure it out at all. The body does it on its own. The body opens it up, no need for C-section. And with energy throughout the childbirth, we're hearing pain-free childbirth again and again. But we're also seeing application for this work when people are dying. Was one woman I showed some people how to run energy, and a group of us ran energy into her dad, who had had hip replacement surgery, and they botched up the operation. He was in his 80s. And after the session, he got into his heart for the first time in weeks. He'd been so cranky and miserable in the hospital. And she said this was the most beautiful thing that ever happened to her in her life, because before Quantum Touch, he couldn't express his love. And after Quantum Touch, he became so vulnerable and so loving that she said, I'm going to treasure those hours and days I spent with him for the rest of my life, because it completed her experience with her dad that had never been fulfilled. So we're seeing it helping people be born. We're seeing it help people die. And speaking of young children, there's one case that I've been following for over a year now, where a baby was born 13 weeks premature. He had severe fetal alcohol syndrome. As the social worker said, mom got virtually all her calories from alcohol throughout pregnancy. The baby also was addicted to crack cocaine and amphetamines. And after 2 weeks in the hospital being fed intravenously, this baby still couldn't move any muscles of its body. It could breathe and it could swallow, but it didn't have enough strength to even suck. When the baby got old enough where it could start crying for food and kicking and such like this, my friend said he'd pick up the baby and hold it in his hands. And the baby would just stop crying and just melt in his hands, like the rabbit that I talked about that just kind of stretched out. He'd put the baby down and the baby would not cry for food. The baby sat patiently waiting for food because he had his touch needs met. The energy needs were met. And as the baby got older, he got hypodermic injections, vaccination shots in each thigh. All the other babies were crying for a long time. My friend ran energy into his chest, and he didn't cry. On the third set of inoculations, my friend was curious, and he picked his hand up after the second inoculation. And the baby started going, he put his hand back down, the baby went, and stopped crying. It's wondering, does this baby feel it? Of course it did. And at age of 1 year, 1 year old, somebody from the county came out to see how this baby was doing, because all severe fetal alcohol syndrome babies get checked out by the county. The result was there was no facial dysmorphology. The baby had above average intelligence, above average developmental skills, 100% on the growth. I mean, it's average height and average weight. What we have here is a very playful, happy, completely healthy, and intelligent baby who might have been relegated to some institution and had a marginal life at best. And this baby is totally thriving now. So we have something here that helps people be born, helps people thrive, helps people heal, accelerate the healing process, helps people care for one another in a meaningful way that has not existed before on a large scale, helps people make the transition and leave beautifully. We have a way for people to love each other. And I imagine a new branch of science coming out of all this. And I like to call it life force science. And life force science would include the changes in physics, chemistry, biology, medicine, psychology, and botany. But it would understand the life force was real. And I think this could mean the biggest paradigm shift the Western civilization has ever had. Because I looked at the big change, the big discoveries that were talked about at the turn of the millennium. They had that show on A&E about the 100 greatest discoveries in the last 1,000 years. And at the very top of the list were things like Louis Pasteur discovering, germ theory, and the printing press. Those were the very top two. But, it was a great discovery to come up with the germ theory. And when people were milking cows and passing on tuberculosis and smallpox, it was a wonderful thing to pasteurize milk. Of course, now that we don't have people milking cows passing on smallpox, it doesn't seem like such a good idea. But ultimately, in my opinion, the plumbers have saved more lives than all the doctors put together, because having good plumbing has made a huge difference in the world. And printing press was wonderful. Getting the word out there, letting people spread information freely from one to another. But it didn't change the core of what people were thinking. It just made the same thoughts more available. We have something here that actually is going to change how people feel about themselves and how people feel about each other. One of the projects we want to do as we get our nonprofit going is what I call the Peace Project. And the Peace Project is one where you find people around the world who hate each other for various reasons, and you have them running energy into each other. So you have the Arab healing the Israeli baby, or you have the Israeli healing the Arab mother. And the gratitude people feel toward this abstracted enemy person, bad person, wrong person, who's given you a favor, who's done a favor for you that you couldn't even begin to know how to repay, is unfathomable. And how do I help? How do I give back? You make the circles of love larger. And if love isn't the answer, then the question is clearly wrong. If having love from one to another isn't going to fix things, then they're beyond being fixed. It's all going to be about love. So our nonprofit that we're putting together is going to be primarily to create orphanages where we're teaching kids to do healing work. It's going to be to make sure they have a fantastic education, and to generate the funds and the grant writers so we can get research done. We'd like to get hundreds, if not thousands, of research projects done in all the major sciences, with the hope eventually of seeing a new branch of science being created and life force universities eventually being created that would study all these areas and prepare people into a new world. Anyway, thank you all so much for making this a wonderful workshop. And you people who are watching the video, I encourage you to practice it, to use it. If you feel inspired to put on your own home video workshop, please do so and bring in some more people. This is going to spread from one person to another, one person loving another person enough to share this information with them. Anyway, thank you so much. It's been wonderful. Congratulations on completing the Quantum Touch video workshop. If you have a desire to lead your own Quantum Touch video workshop, all you have to do is gather the people, take their checks, get the class roster together, and when the checks and roster are mailed to Quantum Touch, we will send each participant the 4 video workshops, the copy of my book, and you also get a copy of my lecture, and a certificate of completion that goes toward becoming a certified practitioner. And you can even move on to become an instructor by doing this work. We have a teacher training school we're putting together that we'll have by the time you're ready, and it's as simple as that. Now, if you wish to become an instructor or certified practitioner and you want to know the details of that program, I suggest that you contact Quantum Touch at www.quantumtouch.com. All the information is on our website, or when you receive your tape and all the package in the mail and your certificate, you will also get a copy of the information. By the way, the tapes and the information may be sent separately, so if you receive one before the other, don't worry about it. Now, we have some wonderful dreams that we're putting together with Quantum Touch, and your participation in this program is really going to help us to get the word out, to let people know that energy is real, that everybody has this ability, and your love has impact. This is a beautiful thing that you're doing. It's going to be so exciting to hear about your successes in the future, and thank you so much for being involved in this.